Welcome to an episode of Behind the Scenes, a weekly program unveiling the biggest political developments in Somali politics. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and producer here on HORUFADHI Media. On this week's program, in another swift move, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud disbands a number of critical independent commissions that underpin Somalia's election framework, among other things, including the National Electoral Commission and Somalia's Electoral Registration and Identification Agency. The president also disbanded the Independent Borders and Federalization Commission at a time where reports emerge of plans by Villa Somalia to seek border changes in southwest states, in particular the Lower Shabelle region. Also on the program, Somalia's Auditor General released a damning financial statement report in which he accused the former government of removing millions of dollars from the Central Bank of Somalia in 2021, among other findings. Now, will there be an investigation conducted by the Ministry of Finance, as Finance Minister Dr. Ilmi Noor says his ministry will be assessing the auditor's findings? These are the topic on the program today. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media. Also, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media Group's second channel, known as HORUFADHI TV, where you are currently watching this program and where you can find other exclusive programs such as Maha Sula, among others. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider HORUFADHI Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Let's get straight into it. In another reshuffle of the upper echelons of the Somali state, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud disbands yet another series of independent commissions that were formed during the previous administration. In recent months, we've seen the president disband or reshuffle a number of commissions that were meant to be independent of the government and the presidency, but have flown under the influence of Villa Somalia in recent months. This includes the Anti-Corruption Commission and the Judicial Service Commission. Both were vital for both tackling corruption and developing an independent judicial system. An entire reshuffle of the National Economic Council, with members that some analysts have argued to be completely inexperienced in the field of national economic governance and international debt relief systems. Indeed, appointing Villa Somalia's economic advisor as head of the NEC. Now, this week, the president disbanded 3 key independent commissions. Let's take a look at the statement released by the presidency following his decision. Now, according to Villa Somalia, the president nullified 3 presidential decrees that were signed by former President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo on the 31st of December 2020, and these are Presidential Decree number 40 relating to the Independent Election Commission, Presidential Decree number 41 relating to the creation of Somalia's Electoral Registration and Identification Agency, and Presidential Decree number 42 relating to the Independent Borders and Federalization Commission. Now, interestingly, in a statement, the president requested for only the Election Commission and Borders Federalization Commission to be reformed, leaving out the Electoral Registration and Identification Agency, an important agency in creating a census as well as registering voters and constituencies ahead of a direct election in Somalia. Now, the presidency cited a statement released by the upper house of Somalia at that time, arguing the passage of the above decrees were in conflict with the provisional constitution of Somalia. However, it does not explain how the formation of these commissions did just that. The reality is that while the country is busy watching the conflict unfold against Al-Shabaab in central Somalia, the president seems to be discreetly disbanding and reshuffling numerous independent commissions and agencies that are vital not just for tackling corruption, but also increasing accountability and supporting the government in the delivery of Somalia's first independent direct elections since the 1960s. One has to question why the president has taken such an action at a time where the focus of the government seems to be fighting Al-Shabaab. Not once has the president criticized or even addressed the aforementioned agencies and commissions. And we must also particularly look at the disbandment of the Boundaries and Federation Commission, which has raised many eyebrows to say the least. For those that do not know, the Boundaries and Federation Commission supports the territorial changes in Somalia in order that it may become a fully fledged federation of states according to Article 111E, subsection 1 of the Somali Constitution, and that is a quote. The role of the commission is to conduct studies, make and print maps, and conduct inquiries to support the creation of viable federal states before putting forward its recommendations to the federal parliament, which ultimately makes the final decision on any border changes, according to subsections 2 and 5 of the same article, which is Article 111E or 111E of the Somali Constitution. Critically, much like the Independent Electoral Commission, Anti-Corruption Commission and others, it is independent from the government institutions, including the presidency, to ensure political independence as specified under subsection 4 of Article 111E regarding Borders and Federalization Commission. Indeed, politicians have a vested interest to win elections and are more likely to engage in actions that alter commissions and systems to benefit electoral results that they wish. What is interesting are recent reports of the possibility that the presidency is devising a plan to remove Lower Shabelle from southwest state of Somalia and incorporate it into Banaadir. This is due to over-reliance of Mogadishu's security on Lower Shabelle, which borders the region. Now, while these reports are not officially confirmed, it is possible to see another ghetto situation appear in southwest state region of Lower Shabelle. We've seen since the beginning of Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's presidency, tensions remaining high between Baydhabo and Mogadishu because of support by Somalia, or Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's government, of politicians opposed to the incumbent state President Lafta Garen, including the appointment of previously imprisoned former Al-Shabaab deputy leader Mukhtar Robo, who was prevented from running in 2018 Southwest State presidency for obvious reasons, including the simple fact that he led Somalia's most brutal and extremist organization in its history for a decade, plus having received training in Afghanistan, being a strong admirer of bin Laden. He, as a fact, openly admits about being an admirer of bin Laden and talks about it. It doesn't even deny these facts. So it's understandable why he was denied to even run, particularly at a time where he just gave himself into the government. But irrespective, we have to wait and see what this government does next. Now we move on to our second story, which is to do with Somalia's Auditor General report, in which he released a damning financial statement in which he accuses the former government of removing millions of dollars from the central bank in 2021, among other findings. Now in the statement, Auditor General Muhammad Ali outlined that there were borrowings made by the Ministry of Finance that totaled $96,365,574 and interest paid of $14,605,118 as reported in the financial statements for the year ending 31st December 2021. The Auditor General went on to say that the Ministry of Finance borrowed $21,992,191 from the Central Bank of Somalia and $74,373,383 from the International Monetary Fund under special drawing rights arrangements. He went on further to say that such financial borrowings must receive parliamentary approval before. However, the Auditor General did not receive any evidence of such approvals nor the borrowing arrangements for both loans. Now, the statement has created a frenzy in the Somali political arena as the old warring camps begin to blame one another for the above accusations. Indeed, there are two main points that I want to raise. Number one, during the 2021 period, the government was led by Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble and the Ministry of Finance was headed by Dr. Bailey. The role of the presidency was diminished as a caretaker government was in place following February 2021, in which the mandate ended. Further on, in April 2021, the presidency finally handed over its final powers regarding internal affairs to the Prime Minister's office, and the sole role of this caretaker government led by Mohamed Hussein Roble was to deliver elections. Therefore, one has to question why the Ministry of Finance had to borrow such large quantities of money. Additionally, I'm profoundly perplexed as to how and why the central bank allowed such a transaction to be enabled, despite its questionable nature, particularly during a period of elections. If the central bank failed to assess even the basic risk of such a transaction, how can we expect such a bank to engage with other international banks that have now actually begun working in Somalia, including the Bank of Egypt, under this government? Now, the Auditor General has promised to conduct an investigation into the matter, while the Finance Minister, Dr. Elmi Noor, says his ministry will be assessing the Auditor General's findings before releasing a response. And I think it's best for analysts to wait for both findings before jumping into any further conclusions. And finally, a key point I want to raise about this report was discussions of the limitations on the new Public Finance Management Act 2019 passed by the previous administration. And the law replaced the old one that was based on a unitary system of governance in Somalia, rather introducing now a federal model to represent Somalia's current political system. However, the new law does not explicitly require ministries, departments or agencies of the federal government of Somalia to submit any kind of annual financial statements for audit. As long as these ministries, departments and agencies continue to get annual budget appropriations from Parliament and use public funds for the federal government of Somalia, recognized good practice require them to submit annual financial statements for audit by the Supreme Audit Institution of Somalia to ensure accountability of the basic funds. The simple fact that the ministries, departments and agencies of the federal government of Somalia are not even audited is shocking, to say the least, because it shed light as to why there is such rampant corruption in Somalia. The simple fact that there's no auditing means that there's no paper trail of where money is going or where it's coming from. To tackle the basic issue of corruption, at its basic form, we need to, at the basic level, at the foundational level, audit every government institution aside from the Ministry of Finance. The reality is that in terms of financial laws, regulations and transparency, Somalia continues to lag decades behind the rest of the globe.